thinking, yeah, I only asked because I mean, it's a recent.
I give them full credit because they speak so
They get their spare parts.
It's
It's not like, oh yeah, it's a 1968 shape.
Oh, yeah.
Hot?
Oh, that sucks. That's awesome.
Totally.
I don't think it's sale yet.
Right.
Huh?
I don't think it's really quick yet.
Yeah, I mean, mash and cheese, it's a big
Anything. I don't care what tournament you play.
It doesn't matter. Yeah,
1,000 teams.
that's awesome.
Yeah, they just called me today, so just don't pick them. People
So
go.
you have it for group not done?
No, you don't.
Should be 7.
Why, you decide which chair to take?
Yep. Far away from the house.
You just don't want to hit the switch over there, or what?
Yeah, I gotta be close enough. Conduct the lighting.
True business.
Do you want to send it to the boardroom email? I got it up, even though it said,
So
don't
what,
do
you
it.
know what it is? Is it just a boardroom at Superior, Colorado?
Yep, boardroom at superiorcolorado.gov. I did send you an email earlier when I found out.
Yeah, I saw it at like 5.
Sorry about that. It was kind of up in the air.
Or I just sent that.
No. Commute was exhausting. There's also some in the kitchen.
No, I got
Okay.
a prescription.
Okay.
You doing the rest of your appointments today?
Got in trouble on the street?
Oh, yeah?
Ask them next to me.
Yeah. It was a rough night for my dog. My girl's now even though just come down. No, we haven't done a thunder shirt for her. We mostly just shut the house
you have to know what you're talking about when he says, change this or that, and you're like, sure.
You're like, where's the 12-year-old gonna explain this to me?
Right.
Yeah, so I mean the you know the general feedback from the survey is, you know, a kind of even mix of features among all disciplines. So like the vert riding, the street park riding, but specifically like we're like quarter pipes, mini ramps,
Rollers, yeah.
bowl, like that, like the more like mostly smaller like transition type features. The bowl would be bigger. The bowl would basically be the replacement for the half pipe, which is actually almost done. George Kuffner's Superior Maintenance has been working on it, and they're almost done. They just ran out of material for it, so it should be done in the next week or two. So, but I don't think, from the sounds of it, it doesn't make a lot of sense to keep the half pipe if we redo the park.
No, I mean, overall, I guess from the overall kind of impression we were getting is that the ramp has had maintenance issues, and we've rebuilt it a couple times now, and so if there's a way to integrate a half pipe or something into the features, that's where we'd head, so that way it has less maintenance over time for a long-term solution.
Yeah. I mean, I'm actually friends with the guy who resurfaced it like 3-4 years ago. I talked to him today, and he said the same thing. He's like, it's going to continue to have maintenance issues. He's like, I told Patrick, you know, whatever, 3-4 years ago, concrete's the way to go. It's that materials is not going to hold up in our environment with the amount of snow and sun exposure it gets. It's just not going to last.
Right. So, I mean, basically we told them that, you know, there's a certain amount of area, certain things that we don't really want to impact out in that zone, and trying to keep buffers between houses, pool, roadway, that kind of stuff. And just said, here's approximately the area you have to work with, and the earth that's there could be adjusted and changed. And he even said he'd look at maintaining some of the concrete slab that's out there and just being able to put features on top of it. And there's different ways that he could work in things. So he said he'd come up with a concept, and at that point, you know, once we have a little bit of a concept, he could come up with a budget, or you know, at least a little bit of a rough understanding of what that would be.
Yeah.
So
Any questions or? So when we have the design, if we have some format of design that we can forward to everyone before the meeting, I'll try to do that. I'm not exactly sure what they're sending. Like, I don't know if it's something that's exclusive to a CAD program or something, or if it's going to be something.
I'm assuming it'll be a
two-dimensional.
PDF.
Yeah, hopefully.
What he told us is that, you know, that the day they present it to us, they could do it in the evening or whenever works for us and during our meetings, etc. But that they could fly through a 3D model type space to be able to see what it would look like. And so more interactive when they present to us, but I think that it'd just be like more of a plan.
Yeah, hopefully.
So
All right, well then, moving on to the next item, budget discussion, that includes the skate park. The way we left it with the previous meetings was that we would put in our budget request the consulting fees for a recreation center ballot question, the South Pole Skate Park, and then the Pirate Park Playground project, if it's not funded this year. So if we're okay with that, then I would say we should formalize a recommendation to the board for those items. Unfortunately, I didn't get clarification from Patrick on how much Lawson, do you know how much he was putting in the budget for the rec center? Was the ballot
for the
question?
consultant?
Yeah,
or
was
for
it
the-
100,000? Do you know?
I don't know. I know that there was going to be an estimate reimbursed
Right, yeah, no, this would be beyond that.
There was an amount in our notes from last month.
Oh, was there? Let me see, because I don't, we should probably include that in the, see, actually, the notes might have been my 100,000. I don't know if that's a confirmed number by Patrick, actually.
It's just a feedback loop,
So-
so it is now.
I guess that's what we'll.
I don't know where that number came from, but it's
It's-
inked in now.
Right.
Yeah, hopefully Patrick verified that. All right, the one thing that we aren't including at this point, but we could, if, if there seems a desire to, is the expedited trails from last year. I believe OSAC is putting that in their budget request to the board, but, based on our discussion last month, it didn't seem like that was really our priority at this point. But that's open to discussion, so.
Well, especially if it's being covered by OSAC, then, or, addressed by them.
I believe it is, that's what I was told.
Did you come up with that? Just kidding.
Wow.
That's
No,
what
okay.
Patrick told me. I have not watched the OSAC meeting
Ah.
from last week. I mean, Allison, you were there, so is that correct? Is that one of their budget recommendations?
It is.
Great.
Okay.
Tough
So
crowd
what are they
today.
doing?
Okay.
They're on the trails expedited side?
They're putting the trails, those expedited trails that, haven't been completed or removed. So.
As a budget recommendation.
As a budget recommendation to be funded next year.
So these are trails that are not built yet?
Yeah,
Planning.
so we built, what, was it Trail F, I think is the one that was the short one along Colton. That one's done.
That's the only one that got done, right?
Well, Trail G, the Coyote Ridge, that could still happen this year, either as part of the Pirate Park playground improvement, like combined with that, or we could just, that's a pretty simple trail. We could just choose to do like a volunteer, like, day in the fall or something to build that trail.
Just wake up one day and I'll be there.
Well,
What?
you're gonna take your mower out and you'll be done.
So,
what
but this
trails are
would,
they looking at?
so it
This
was
is my
basically
question. What's left?
the one that runs from South Indiana to Calmonte along McCaslin.
So it's
And
really
then the
this
connector,
one.
Which we've already
That's
decided is
Calmonte.
a huge cost because of the.
well, staff is
bridge.
working on a workaround to avoid
So we
like the
did
cost
this
of a
one.
bridge
Right.
and everything. So they're still working on that to bring the
That's
cost
kind of,
down.
that's kind of in staff's hands in the impasse to find out if we can even afford, because a major,
Right.
if they can't do a workaround, it's major.
That's not-
It was a major, it was like over $1 million
Yeah,
just
right.
for that one trail.
Right.
And then the basically the connectors off of that, so the one that goes through that greenway to Wildflower Park.
Which.
And
a lot of
then
people
the
are
one
against.
that goes up to Fire Station Park that connects into, and
Right.
that's basically it, cause the one that was the one that, was west of McCaslin, running like from where High Plains Drive, like along the ridge,
Yeah.
that one got pulled because of design concerns, and then, I guess.
Public Works take one too?
The one, yeah, the one that's like from the Key Building down the hill
Yeah.
is, I think, in limbo based on a combination of things. Rogers Farm, the Public Works project that got pulled, and then Shan Trailhead.
So I guess the discussion point would be, what would we want to put, if we wanted to put this trails, which ones do we think we need to even discuss or put on an order?
And I saw
Oh.
that the other day that number, which is telling the record, number 16 on the list right there is done, or almost all the way done. I just rode by it the other day.
That's
Went over
the,
by
No,
his house.
that's done.
Yeah.
That, we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but that, for when we're gonna talk about the 5-year trails plan if we have
Well-
time, and that is done, so we're actually gonna pull it off the 5-year trails plan.
Okay. 'Cause I just saw it the other day, I'm like, huh?
Boulder Youth Corps did it, so.
And I guess, in just going back to last month, I mean, from my understanding, we talked about trails, but we basically prioritized that the Pirate Park and the embankment slide was our kind of number one. That was from last year, carryover, keep that momentum, it's designed, and can we get that put through? And the monetary amount wasn't too overwhelming, and at that point, if you could, merge in that other trail with that, or, if that's something that we can do in a community outing, that would take care of that expedited trail as well, all in one. And then on top of that, we talked about the rec center is really our key one that kind of fell off with the push the rec center with the momentum we had from Lakeshore, and see if we can continue that started. We had that going before the Lakeshore kind of derailed it. So if we can bring that back up as a priority, that, bringing BRS back on, or a consultant to look at the, design and what it would cost, and really get us an understanding so we could get that on the budget or ballot initiative next year.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, what was the third one? There was one other one. Oh, the skate park.
Skate park.
Skate park. So, and that was, one of the amenity priorities in the parks, and I think it was the maintenance issues that were going on there that kind of brought that back up as a higher priority as good. So between those three, the fourth one was the trails, and the trails, as you can see, some of them are in limbo, some of them are designed, some of them are kind of on hold.
Right.
So it's really down to, I think, maybe a couple that are on that list. And if OSAC is pushing that, and, we're behind it, but is it one of our top three that we want to push?
Right. That's kind of where my question was, which are the ones that they could possibly be pushing? Because there's nothing on there that's thrown out at me going, oh, we need to really make sure this gets done, except for if we can get Pirate Park done. I think that automatically that's a kind of a combined process, we hope, right? Theoretically.
Right. But I do feel like the trail that runs from Indiana to Calmonte is an important trail at the point at which Calmonte builds their trail. And I don't know if that's going to be next year. I would assume they're nearing completion.
Just move some more over.
So I would say once they build their piece of the trail, it makes a lot more sense for us
To then
to
say,
finish.
yeah.
Whether or not those connectors that, the one might meet resistance with the residents that we've already heard from, whether or not we did those, I don't know, but I would say at least doing the full connection to Indiana would be important, but.
I just see that from a connectivity to the southern side of town, that's a key trail that I do see people running out on McCaslin, or a lot of the biking and things. And you can see the high use that the trail that has been put in on the east side from McCaslin, Colton North, has, it's a high use, and that'd be just another connectivity to tie everything together. And with the Calmonte piece being in the middle of that, if we can continue that, I think it'd be good. But I know that there's a constraint with the ravine and the grading issue. I don't know why they're all ADA now, because there's a lot of trails in the community that aren't ADA compliant.
I don't know if it's a requirement as much as it's just there's a desire to, if we're going
Right.
to build a new trail, to make
Best
it
practice.
ADA.
Right.
Yeah, best practice.
Except for the Coyote Ridge.
Well, that's right. I mean, some are just not practical, so. Yeah.
So, anyway. I mean, does anyone think that we should try and push any of those trails?
That was kind of why I was asking, because I liked our three that we discussed last week a whole lot better than the fourth, the
Okay.
trail side of things.
Perfect.
From my seat, that's right. I think we need to really emphasize from the park and rec side, the almost need, especially for the skate, some kind of decision on the skate.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, we've been fighting for that slide for 2 years now, so
Yeah.
finally got on our plan, and so.
Mm-hmm.
So then I would make a motion that PROSTAC requests that the following budget items be added to the 2018 Town of Superior budget. Consultants for Recreation Center ballot question, Pirate Park playground, embankment slide, and and trail connection to Coyote Ridge, if not completed in 2017, and the South Pole Skate Park improvements. The amounts, the dollar amounts will be confirmed by staff. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Corbett, second. Discussion.
Do we want to reverse one or two?
Well,
Just a
they're
question.
not they're not in
order.
Okay.
order of priority.
Okay.
Do we want to, I'm just asking, not arguing with your, I'm just throwing it out there for discussion purposes. Does anybody think we should rotate to emphasize one of the three, or just leave it, the big one, the biggest on top, and then work your way down? Can't get anybody to go after, all right. that's fine.
I just feel like the trustees will, I mean, they're gonna put it in the order, the board's gonna put it in
Well,
the order if they wanna put
I
it in
absolutely-
anyway,
I
right?
absolutely agree, that's the
Yeah,
only,
right.
again, I'm totally 100%
Yeah.
yes on it, I
Yeah.
agree with it, I just throwing it
Yeah.
out there, figure we should have a little discussion, if we don't, then let's just move on. So,
I would just say we will say in no order of priority.
I would just leave it as is, if that, I
Yeah.
don't think we need to emphasize that, I just,
Yeah.
because I think it was perfect, what you said.
Okay.
I agree.
Great, so all in favor?
Aye.
All right, passes unanimously. So move on to the presentations for the August 14th board work session. So just, I don't know this with certainty, but I believe the work session is going to be pretty early on August 14th, like 4 or 4:30, in order to accommodate both the rec center and the Pirate Park presentations. So, I mean, just if anyone intends to show up, just be aware
Okay.
of the time. But I mean, if I'll be there, if no one else is, I'll at least be there to present. And staff, Patrick will be there to present.
Is it for us to come as part of PROSTAC or us to come just as
As
citizens?
part of
As
PROSTAC.
part
I
of
mean, this
PROSTAC,
is
okay.
this is PROSTAC's allotted time in front of the board. So,
Okay, great.
so yeah, I mean, and the rec center piece of it is actually, it's not really going to be a presentation so much as more of a discussion is what the sense that I'm getting. So, I think as many PROSTAC members that can be there as possible would be ideal.
So the more people that show up, the more support we show for that. We just passed these three as budget items, and these are two of the three that have further traction. Because the skate park, we don't really have anything yet. We might have something before then, but
We
it'd be
might.
like weeks, a day ahead of time.
Well, but yeah, and that's not going to be part of this
Right.
anyway.
So,
So,
but, that would, reinforce the Pirate Park and the rec center, as kind of our priorities, and, it's always better to have more.
So
Okay, great.
the rec center presentation, again, loosely use the word presentation. Basically, we'll just present to the board the motion we made, the recommendation we made last month, and then, unfortunately, we don't have it tonight, but BRS is working on updating the pricing of the amenities. So that should definitely be done for August 14th. So that we'll have that. So in the recommendation we made, we based it on the old numbers that came out to approximately 20 million. We should hopefully know if that number has changed. I mean, it almost certainly will have gone up, but we'll know by how much. And so that will be part of the discussion with the board. The Pirate Park, there are some graphics that Alice can run through for us. So, so
How's
one
this
thing,
look really?
and the one thing we don't seem to have from Patrick is the budget on it, but I believe it was around 80,000 to have it done.
You guys see it, all right?
Assume your position,
I don't know what's like.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what's like. These aren't mine. I got no control.
These are
I have no
mine.
power over the overhead spotlights.
They're on your side.
They are pretty bright.
Corbett, it's all you.
Ah.
Wow. If you're watching this, don't go into a seizure. All the flashing
But here, but it
lights.
looks like it's a drop down.
We got this,
That's
So-
the
everybody.
screen.
If Allison, if you go back to that first one, so I believe the red line here is the trail. So
Oh.
this was to make it more accessible was, you know, with the grade, was to go kind of far east and then up the ridge line and then drop back down rather than go straight. I mean, for those of you who know, it's a pretty steep hill.
Yeah.
So
I
rather
love
than
that
go
spot.
straight up the hill. And then there were some just examples of what the embankment slides look like,
Cool.
what they could look like.
How long is that? That's more like a 40-footer right there.
I would say that the hillside is somewhere between those two pictures. It's definitely longer than the first one. It's probably not as long as that one. But maybe we try to get the measurement before we present it, just so we know.
Cool.
Was that it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I thought Patrick had a little more, but
There's a
that's
little
all that was in the
aerial.
folder. I mean, unfortunately, he couldn't be here again.
So is that, I'm trying to remember what's existing and what's new. So the red line is all new.
Red line would be on
The red line would be the new trail. Yeah, you can just see the worn social trails in that Google Earth image.
So does that red put it down on the lower side of the hill, so you're not really on top of the hill anymore?
Yeah, in fact, that's what, remember we were
So you
talking
don't
about this,
look
one
at
of
the back door?
Well, that's what one of the
Right.
people who live in that area were concerned with, is that people at the top of the hill looking in their house.
You're on the
And they
back
said, no,
side.
you'd be on the back side of it and it'd be
Right.
a little bit of coverage.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and in
Like
this
the last thing.
situation, the trail will kind of serve a dual purpose for the embankment slide. Is the embankment slide ideally is going to be kind of like that first photo where it has like boulders and hillside. So the kids would most likely just scramble up the hill side. But if someone didn't want to or wasn't able to really go do that, they could take the trail to the top of the hill to access the slide too. That's why it makes sense to, one of the reasons why it makes sense to complete these together, because they kind of go hand in hand. So this, I believe, was 75, 80,000 to do at least the slide. The trail was
Trail was
like,
separate.
it wasn't very much. It was less than 10,000, I think. So I think
Well,
total.
it's a
it
single
was-
track, right?
Yeah.
Trail?
No, single track.
Okay.
So I think the total budget request is somewhere around 90,000 to complete this.
Can you go back one more? And the embankment slide is set to be more on the right.
Well, yeah, I
In
mean,
between those two
you can
trails?
see where the
Yeah.
playground is.
Right. in
And
between.
my assumption is the embankment slide is kind of directly above the playground.
Right, on the
Not,
right-hand
not
one.
skewed either way, because then you would be more coming down to the houses.
Right.
I mean, there's a trail and there's trees between the houses and at least in some of the areas, trees and shrubs between the houses and the trail. It's not like those houses are completely exposed.
Mhm. No, I was just checking. Okay. So, in recollection back to that, I swear we had a drawing of the actual slide at one point.
Well, that's what I thought too, but
I
it's
mean,
not
it
in
seems
this
like if that's,
folder.
if we're gonna discuss it, I know that we had that at one point. Allison, don't you remember where Patrick put it?
Yeah, unfortunately, if I had known Patrick wasn't going to be here, I would have asked for him to run through what he had with me beforehand. But so I haven't seen. All right, is this it? Is that the design of the slide?
Oh,
It
cool.
was one of them, yeah.
Huh.
Okay.
Because, yeah, they did some regrading and then bouldering and,
Huh.
So that does actually look like the slide is skewed a little to the west of the playground. Because you see where that dotted line comes on the right-hand side? I think that's the edge of the playground. So the slide's actually to the
Isn't
left.
that tying into the concrete of the playground? Isn't that the concrete ring down there?
Yeah, it's where they land.
Unless, all right, maybe you're right. Maybe that's true. So maybe it is on the,
I guess, to me.
I was thinking that was the
I thought
sidewalk.
that was a sidewalk.
But you, no, I think Corey might actually be right. Because
Pretty
you
sure
see,
that's concrete.
you see where, the, like to the far left of that image, that where the concrete gets wider,
Yeah.
that's like where the bench is, I think.
Can you zoom out a little bit?
Zoom out?
Out, are you
Yeah.
sure?
There you go. So,
Yeah, can you read anything now?
well, no, but I can see the,
That's the sidewalk.
lay
that's the
of it.
sidewalk over there. So now I
Yeah.
can see it there.
So, no, you're right, it does go right into the,
You know what I mean? That's all I was looking
into
for.
the playground.
Right.
Hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Hmm.
I think that's it.
Because that's back to the.
Okay.
Yeah.
So any more questions on this?
No, but just to clarify, I think that, you know, without being misconstrued about how big the slide is, I think the slide is actually the bottom half of that hill. And it's not all the way up to the top.
We can try to get some clarification on
Just from
the
looking at
length
that
of the
drawing,
slide.
it looks like a
Yeah.
20-foot slide, and it only goes from the playground to the red line,
They
not
showed a flat
past the
area.
red line.
Sort of
Yeah.
flat area in that picture.
Just to point that out.
Well, yeah, it does seem to have a good bit of run out.
Is there a measurement that we can maybe see?
Well, there's contours there, and you can read the contours.
There are measurements.
Yeah.
So, but is there one for the slide?
Contours are upside down, but
Does it say the number there?
See sheet,
Oh, goodness.
detail
But even just
That's
looking
all
at
straight
the,
to look.
the scale of that,
Yeah, I mean, there
it
seems
doesn't
to
look
be-
like the slide is
Right.
gonna go, obviously,
very
yeah.
long.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I mean, there's measurements for the pad at the top and bottom, but it doesn't seem to be actual measurement on the slide.
You can tell it's not the top of the hill, but there's still contour lines going on.
Yeah.
So anyway, just from an overall perspective, I think that that drawing is important for the discussion. But I think, you know, even if it doesn't cover the whole hill, I mean, it's still an improvement to the park and provides another play area. And,
I would be curious to know why they didn't design it to the top of the hill.
Maybe
Just
the
saying.
landing has to be bigger or something if it's a longer slide. You know, I mean,
I'm not sure, but
I mean, it's not. I wouldn't think it's something that you need that big of a landing area. It's not like it's a slip and slide where you need like a big run out or anything.
well, I guess I was just thinking that if you're flying down it for a longer, you know, longer stretch, maybe there's some liability issues there.
All right, so then the rec center discussion that we'll have with the board. Again, we should have the updated BRS numbers. The one kind of kink in this whole thing is, did everyone see the Daily Camera article on Monday?
heard about it, haven't read it all yet.
All right, so
Right.
Trustee Hansen has been speaking with Impact Sports and Sports Stable about whether or not they would partner with the town to build something in that pad that's in front of the sports stable that hasn't been developed. This is originally where they were gonna do like their therapy pool, and then they just nixed that, sports stable nixed that from their design, and it got left undeveloped. And so the idea that Chris has put in front of the board at the retreat, a week, 2 weeks ago, is that would be developed as like the town's rec center in partnership with Sports Stable and Impact Sports, it hasn't been fully fleshed out what amenities from that PROSTAC has recommended would actually fit in that building. But the one thing, this will almost definitely come up as part of the discussion with the board, because there's at least several board members now that seem to have expressed interest in it, even though there's other board members that seem to get blindsided by the article that ran in the paper, from my understanding. But it will almost come up, definitely come up. But my hope is that PROSTAC's allowed to present our recommendation without being, completely sidelined by this other potential option. Because what we've been working on is what was on our work plan. It's what's been in discussion for a lot longer period of time. We've put a lot of work into it, so I hope that we're given that opportunity on the 14th to fully discuss our idea before we start discussing the other option. But just everyone's forewarned that if you haven't seen the article, read it. It's still not a lot of detail, like I said. It could get some type of pull on the lower level, not to the extent that we've discussed. We'd be sharing the gymnasium with Impact Sports. I don't know if we'd be sharing the fitness equipment with Impact Sports, or if like the town's kind of building would have its own. I just don't really know to the full extent of what would go in such a facility. But
When you say pad in front of the sports stable, where is that?
so the entrance.
You mean just that little tiny
rectangle? It's like I think it's like
That'd be enough for the
5,000.
pool.
It's like 5,000 square feet, basically. And
Not
so if
even
you did a
enough for the
4-level building, you get 20,000 square feet. We've been talking about a 60,000 square foot
Right. Okay.
facility. This is a 20,000 square foot. Again, you might have some shared amenities.
Okay. Sorry. I just.
But it's that's the the biggest wrinkle I see is it's not what
Right.
we've been talking about. It's not what's really. It's not going to get the top priorities in the survey. I don't feel.
Right.
But
It's a compromise.
It needs to be. It needs to be better presented. But I want PROSTAC to have the opportunity to present our recommendation before there's some type of presentation done on this other option. So. All right, well, any other questions on the board work session?
Anything to add, Sam, about this thing Chris came up with? Anything you know? You wait, hello?
Do you want to turn off your mic?
Or anything you want to tell us or don't want to tell us?
Positive. Negative?
I'll be in the parking lot after
Okay.
the meeting.
We'll read the article.
I would encourage you to read the article.
Yeah.
And there was support from several trustees on the alternative plan. And it was discussed at the retreat. Wasn't fleshed out, but I would say the fact that you saw it in the paper meant that it's a bit more than just an idea.
Yeah.
But an idea that I still have not seen details on. And were not mentioned in the article, the details of what it could include, so. But again, I don't want us to get blindsided on the 14th with like a flushed out proposal on that when we haven't even talked about our recommendation yet.
Just curious, do we know what the parking capacity is for just that general area in town center? Because if you build it, it's 5,000 square feet, one level, but if you build it 4 levels, that's 20,000 square feet.
Right.
It's a facility, it's parking. So I'm just you know, mentioning that
It's,
parking needs to be considered too before we just build a rec center, you
But-
know.
I mean, there's parking structures within town center, not a lot of street parking.
Right.
I mean,
I don't know, yeah, I don't know if it,
They
if
haven't
if this
looked
were to be proposed, yes, they probably would have to make adjustments to accommodate additional space. But
Okay.
my guess is it's gonna be accommodated in the other parking structures somewhere. It's not gonna be like direct, like adjacent
For that.
to this building.
I'd
It's
be
gonna
more
be
concerned.
more associated with the sports stable or the town center, town square than, it's not like, I don't think they would have dedicated parking for it. But that's a good point. I mean, that's
This-
not one that I've heard brought up yet.
Right, I mean, just mentioning it because, for example, if you have a smaller rec center, but then you need to build extra parking, you know, spaces or a parking garage, then those two costs combined could be, you know, a larger rec center somewhere else.
Well-
The cost thing is a whole other, I mean, I don't think we really wanna get into that right now. But
They haven't- they
if you,
haven't-
if you have a chance to listen to like the board retreat where it's discussed, I mean, again, not get into detail, but this whole idea of how it might be funded. And that's a whole other part of the discussion. And I think part of the reason why it's being brought up is they think that it can be funded without a ballot measure. I'll leave it at that.
But they haven't, I mean, the critical thing to me is that you're tying it into an existing building that you can't use any of the existing infrastructure. They don't have stair towers, they don't have elevators, they don't have unless the mechanical was way oversized, they're not gonna be able to tie into that. So, you know, you got a lot of other infrastructure pieces that when we looked at our proposal, I swear we were spending 5,000 square feet on just the infrastructure piece.
Good point, yeah.
You know, so they haven't looked at those details yet because that's a very small, tight, confined space, and even doing the construction now that they're open is very difficult. And putting in concrete and columns and stuff like that adjacent, because it's a 2-story, single-level building, long-span structure. If they're trying to put a 4-story next to it, it's not just that simple.
Right.
Especially if we're trying to do rec facility. I mean, maybe for fitness, yoga rooms and stuff like that, but you're not gonna get a basketball court, you're not gonna get maybe a pool on the lower level, but it's not gonna be that big, and you're gonna have to accommodate circulation and stairs and elevator. So, I mean, you're gonna cut into that pretty quick. Just my opinion, sorry.
And yeah, I mean, you would have to.
That's without seeing any details, but.
You, like, just by having the pool, you're probably gonna have to have dedicated locker rooms, but they're gonna be on the second floor. So then you're eating up your second floor square footage for basically, you know, service facilities for the pool on the first floor. So yeah, there's a question of what else you could get. And there was even the mention in the retreat, which actually caught me a little by surprise because I hadn't heard that before, was this idea that you would have like athlete housing for the sports stable at the 4th floor of the town's rec center building. That's what was said in the retreat. And there's a lot of things that would need clarification in that proposal, and the least of which is how it would be how it could actually be funded. Because if you watch the retreat and how it's being presented, it could be funded, I call it into question immediately. So. All right, so since we have plenty of time, I would make a motion that we add to the agenda the 5-year trails plan. Is everyone in favor of adding that item to the agenda?
Sure.
All right, so Corey and I met with the OSAC chair and vice chair yesterday. They finally, as a committee at their meeting last week, went through the 5-year trails plan that we had gone through months ago. And so we have the combined list that Allison can pull up. There are 2 items that we decided, we agreed with OSAC to remove. Those were the Coal Creek Crossing Trail that's now been completed, and the soft surface trail along the west boundary of Sagamore that would go from Coal Creek Drive to the trail entrance over there. That one was, I guess, shot down by the county.
Wasn't that the one that's already, which one?
The Sagamore,
behind
like that
Sagamore.
little stretch.
Yeah.
The OSAC
Right.
removed it from their list.
It was also that there's a bike lane, if you look at the map, hold on, let me find my map again. There's a bike lane that's already there on the road. So that's, Allison, do you have this one? Or anything like this? I just a map with trails.
So anyway, I would say the main things to look at here would be column C, that's the combined ranking. And so that goes, you know, from 1 to, what
Yeah.
is it, 17, 18, I think. And then column F, those were our rankings. So if you look at that, the only one that really kind of stuck out to us was the Coyote Ridge Trail. We had ranked it as number 4, ends up as 7 on this list. That's the only one that really kind of dropped down. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, but we were okay with that because we feel like it's going to be accomplished in the short term anyway.
Right.
So having it not as like the top priority, you know, outside of the top 5 or whatever, wasn't a huge concern to us. But everything else, I mean, it moved. They got shuffled around a little from our priorities, but not anything too drastic. You know, like what we had as 1, 2, 3
That won't work.
ended up being,
That's close enough.
you know,
But if you bring that up.
3,
you'll see
1,
the
2.
trails we're
You know,
talking
like
about.
they're still on the same top 3. They just got shuffled.
Yeah.
Do you want it
So
bigger?
can you just open that map, and we'll just hit that map real quick? Because essentially, that's an old one with letters.
It was the one from Chili Fest engagement.
Okay, there was a new map
But-
done for 4th of July.
Oh, that's right.
And that's the map that OSAC removed the aforementioned Sagamore Trail. They removed it from the new map.
I mean, overall, I mean, yeah, I think, you know, we're pretty much in alignment on the top 3, and it's just the bottom few that there's some minor adjustments.
I mean, the Shan Shan Trailhead
Just
definitely
trying to-
bumped up higher than we had it. You know, we had it as 9. It comes up to 4. That
Isn't there-
one
isn't there a
that
problem-
still has a long way.
Yeah, it's got a
before.
Boulder County problem, doesn't it?
It's got to be agreed on by the
Yeah.
county. It's got issues of whether it should be tied into the Rogers Farm development
There you
versus
go.
So,
have direct access off of McCaslin.
You got this.
so if you just leave it scrolled up, I mean, we're talking number 17 is one of our priorities, because it's really the interconnectivity of trails between Original Town and Rock Creek.
Mm-hmm.
And then number 2 is the Davidson Mesa up at the very, very top, which is off the page there. Number 13, right? And then number 14 was the one that, the soft trail boundary between Sagamore and Coal Creek, that's the one that OSAC removed, because if you look at it, the Dr. Cog is a good portion of that along 36. And then as you go down 76th,
Mhm.
it's a bike path behind Target.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns into, I think there's a bike path pretty much the majority of the way, and then it turns to a gravel road at the very end.
Well, yeah. So it's only that little
Sliver at the
sliver that turns west. That's really the only thing that would be constructed new. And
So that's why that one came off the list, is because it's
yeah.
it's pretty much taken care of with the Dr. Cog and moving that forward, and what's already existing, that a lot of the
So
connectivity.
14's gone?
14's off.
Okay.
It's
Isn't
been
20 gonna
removed.
be gone too? Isn't that the one in front of
That's
us?
already been removed.
That one's
That's
been
already
removed.
removed. Okay, great.
And 16 was the one that's the other one that said, that was number 5 on our list, but that one has already been constructed.
Hmm.
So as you can see, that's where all this changes come in, and that, some of it's just reanalyzing what's out there and what's
Yeah.
been done.
What's
and
the timeline
coming.
of Dr. Cog?
It's supposed to be done next year. It's supposed to be designed this year, but I haven't heard anything about it. But it's supposed to be designed this year and built next year. That's the
Gotta double check.
timeline. Though it's probably gonna have some serious design challenges. If anyone's looked at
Yeah,
the
no.
topography and the narrowness of the,
Thought they would've done it when they did the highway.
yeah, I thought they would have too.
Hmm.
Or at least it would have made more sense.
So with that, really the only pieces left are that long extension on the southern McCaslin connection number 6, which is up toward the bottom.
Hmm.
Keep going. Oops, I think there's more than 1 6 on there.
There's more than one number 6.
Yeah.
That's accurate.
Well, maybe I have it wrong on my little thing here. It's the number 1 trail,
Ah,
Right.
which is half of that's gonna go to Calmonte and half of it's still outstanding. And number 7, like half of it's already done because of the park. So there's some modifications to these with some of the developments that have happened. And number 2 is complete now up there as well. And that was part of the expedite.
Right.
So I think that hits all of them. I mean, that's kind of where we landed on the top 5.
Yeah, and in general, there's a number of trails on here that really fall under county. And if you start picking those out, like Corey said, the ones that really fall under town are like the ones along the McCaslin corridor. I mean, there's a couple other ones, like stragglers, like 11 up there by Community Park.
mm-hmm.
Well,
A couple like that, the one around Hodgkin Harris.
yeah, and that one's, that one falls into the, can we provide something, and how does it tie into the Zaharias and what's going on there? And I think even part of that 8 is already constructed. Isn't that part of the disc golf and bike path that goes through there?
Well, that's actually really 19 is the existing trail that I think is on here as being paved,
Oh, that's right.
converted to paved. The 8 would be a new trail. It's on the other side of the creek, I believe,
Oh.
like
okay.
running along the dog park, the southern edge of the dog park.
So with all that thrown out there, is everyone totally confused, or do they understand?
Yeah,
where we stand?
exactly.
Well, there's 2 6s. I'm just kidding.
Well, it would be
Well,
really
it might be
nice-
just the one on mine versus
Yeah.
that.
What would be really nice is, especially to show the community a what is. This is what the trail system, what the plan looked like. Here's the things that actually have been built. Here's the things that effectively built because of the other pieces. And here's all the stuff that we've knocked off the list.
Well, I think there's a composite trail map somewhere, because this is just the proposal.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
And
maybe
there's a
it's
composite, so it
short
really changes from the not there to
Is there,
existing.
right, but it'd be, really nice to show that.
Like an overlay of the
The
two.
actual
that post-back
progress.
At work, that this is the 5-year trail plan, and look how much of this stuff's already been knocked off. Because half the stuff, the first 5 minutes of your talking was all, yeah, that one's done, that one's done, that one's effectively done, that one.
Did you
Yeah.
say I talked for 5 minutes?
But it's all good stuff.
No, that's great, though, yeah.
They're all bad.
There you go. Right there.
And is this getting formally presented to the board in a
Well,
different
so
way, or?
we'll,
is this-
if we vote to approve it,
Mhm.
then it'll be in the meeting notes of both OSAC and PROSTAC. I don't know that the board really needs to formally adopt this one.
Yeah.
The Boulder County, which we could talk about that tonight too. I wasn't really as prepared to talk about that. But the Boulder County recommendations, the board does need to formally adopt that one, which we did talk to OSAC about last night as well. But I guess first I would just say, if we're all in agreement, I would make a motion to accept the 5-year trails plan as seen in the attachment, and this would be the same trails plan that was adopted by OSAC.
Or would the other option be to say we want to stick with ours?
Well, that would be our other
That was our
option.
discussion last year, if I remember correctly. Do we want to go with ours, combined,
Right.
and let the board decide? But then the discussion got thrown back in, the board wants.
The board would
Unified
like
effort.
us to have a
Yeah.
unified, a combined trails list.
Because having Shan just makes no sense to me, so. And I understand the main.
And I believe last year we made a motion that we adopted it with concerns over Shan Shan.
It's a legitimate concern. They're not, I mean, Boulder County's not, they want everybody used to the Colton.
We could do
Trail.
the same this year if we wanted. I mean, I can withdraw my motion and we can make
No.
an empty motion and mention concerns.
Obviously,
over
everybody else
Shan
have it.
Well, it hasn't been seconded, so.
Shan. No, it
It's
hasn't.
time.
Well, that's why I said I could withdraw it, because it hasn't been seconded.
I guess my question would be, is if we made our motion last time, whatever it was, and we said we agree with it, that we had concern over Sanchin, what changed this year if we didn't make the exact same recommendation? Do we not have concern over Sanchin? Did last year, what changed?
Wasn't the
No,
ranking
good
of it
point.
different?
That's a good point.
Well, it wasn't just the ranking, it's the fact that
It was even on.
it was even on there.
Oh.
So,
The concerns were not that it was on there, the concerns were just over design. From what I recall.
It's your access.
We had concerns over access.
But the concern
Um,
was putting it so high on the list when we know that we gotta get Boulder County involved in it. That's my concern.
I think, well, yeah,
'Cause
might have been a
'cause you're-
mix.
I'm not
of
saying it's wrong, I'm
concerns.
just saying you're bumping stuff down that we clearly had higher, because we had it at number 9,
Right.
right? So my concern would be that's what my concern is, that we're bumping Shan Shan way up. So the board's gonna look at this going, oh, look, they want Shan Shan done, when we know, regardless of the fact that there's no funding for it anyway, and it's gotta come out of the general fund. So I don't know if we wanna make a big issue out of it.
Well, it would most likely come out of open space fund.
Which is pretty much general fund, because we gotta pay open space back for the park, so.
Well, how likely is it that we're gonna get to number 4?
I'll just say that our top 9 are still in the top 9, it's just shuffled around a
No,
little
I
bit.
understand, again.
So, I
That's
mean-
why I bring it up as a discussion point if we need.
And I'll just say, like, town center trail connections, I think it's important and a priority on our list, but I don't think we can do anything about it until they get final development plans for the town center. So it's just something that we feel is important, that is on everyone's mind as we move forward, that there is trail connectivity discussed and addressed as they finalize plans. So that's number 1 for connectivity within town and connectivity to trails.
You know.
Davidson Masons, you're gonna say the same thing, because
Exactly.
that's Boulder County again, where you have to cross the highway.
That's,
And we
that's
have no
a-
control.
Yeah, that's, like, number 2 being Davidson Mesa, that's almost entirely out of our hands. That's Boulder County, CDOT, town, the city of Louisville. I mean, we fall, it's not even within.
But it is in our top 3.
Right.
Well,
And we
because
think
we
it's a
have
safety
concerns
concern.
over
Right.
safe access to it, but it doesn't even lie within our borders.
And you know, our number 3 is in the expedited trails and been designed.
Yeah. So that means the next trail up is Shan
Well, right.
Shan. So do any of us in this room wanna see Shan Shan built next? That's my question. I'm trying to be a antagonist here. I'm just trying to.
We're trying to help the conversation.
Just trying to get
Well, I mean, what I'm now hearing, which I just heard for the first time yesterday, first from Corey and then from the members of OSAC, is that I guess there are parking issues at the trailhead at, what is it, Third
It's not a
Avenue, Second
trailhead,
Avenue?
and that's the issue.
Well, the gate.
Right, the
The
gate.
gate
Right.
that's there.
I
So
mean, I
I
just-
guess there are parking issues on the street there. So if that is indeed the case, then a proper trailhead at Shanshan could help alleviate some
Well,
of
there's
the,
also.
Even
parking
last night
issues.
when we left, there was parking issues there. There was like 3 or 4 cars out there.
was there?
Yeah.
I'll tell you, there's also parking issues at the Colton Trailhead too. I mean, that parking lot fills up so.
Right,
and-
it's
and
not big
People go
enough.
to the overflow, which is not really overflow, but they do anyways in that gravel area over by where the Richardson or whatever.
The
Richmond
Richmond,
15.
yeah, the Richmond 15.
So they start parking there, and I've seen that area filled up on a sunny weekend.
Yeah.
So anything to, I do agree, anything to alleviate parking.
So in that sense, I'm actually a little bit more favorable to Shanshan. I still have concerns over the drive access. I think it makes more sense if you come around, if you turn right at the roundabout and had some type of road access down there, like along the Rogers property, than having its own dedicated right in, right out turn, because then you would have the concerns over, well, you can only turn in right. You wouldn't be, so if you're coming north on McCaslin, you have to go around the roundabout and back up. And if you pull out of it, you're going south on McCaslin, but you want to be going north, you got to go up to Rock Creek Circle and do a U-turn.
Yeah.
And so I have my concerns over that. I think it only makes sense if you're gonna have some type of drive access off of the Rogers Farm property, which then says, well, do you even proceed with this until you know what's happening with Rogers Farm? Those are my concerns, plus costs, but I mean, that's the whole other thing. We're not really supposed to get too involved in, but I do have my concerns over, spending a huge amount of money on a trailhead there. Apparently the OSAC, what they saw was their Cadillac version, and they didn't even have a design for the trailhead, and they didn't even have a cost attached to it.
Does Shanshan rank high on OSAC's list as well?
Well, that's why it gets bumped up so high, is they rank it as their
Second.
Second most important priority.
Oh, I see, this is
Yeah.
combined, okay, sorry.
yeah.
I thought this was ours.
This is their second.
It
and-
shows
So it was our
both.
ninth, their second.
Okay, got it, thank you.
And also, they're also seeing it as a piece of open space that was purchased, and they're looking at tearing out that structure up there soon. And so with that structure being gone, there's some renovation of that space already. And if you're taking out that and
I understand why
modifying,
OSAC.
there's some kind of back and forth there. And, for me, it really just comes down to access to it. I mean, if we're coming off a Third and coming over there because we don't know what's going on with Rogers Farm, and you're not bringing people in and out of McCaslin on that uphill, I just think that that's the biggest concern with that property, just how to get to it.
Would you say the McCaslin access is better, or going through,
You described them like a little side road.
Well, yeah,
take
I
the
think
circle
I
at
think
the
you
temporary
want
and
I
just
think
take
you
it out.
want access off McCaslin. I just think it should come from the roundabout and have like a side road.
See how they take the roundabout kind of out, but there's nothing there? The
Yeah.
theory is that could be an access to Rogers Farm, and then that would be a nice little side road then you're talking a much safer
To
scenario.
Shanshan.
And
Because-
right now,
Because that way you're not only you're accessing it from McCaslin, by going in the roundabout you can go in any direction.
Go straight across.
From the trail.
right, you can get out easily.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're right on that, so.
Yeah.
I agree with you there.
But I mean, and if you're not coming off of McCaslin, I'm sure Original Town is gonna say, well, you have this great trailhead, but now you're routing people through Original Town, increasing traffic to get in there, which they probably already have that with some of the parking that's over there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's, just a concern.
So I mean the question is, do we want to adopt this as is, or do we want to adopt it with a notation again on concerns over Shanshan?
I agree with what Scott, that what's changed in the last year that's changed us away from that, other than the concerns over is the concerns over parking at the other trailhead enough to maybe say we should probably think about it? That would be my question.
So, to get to your first question, or the one I pulled also, is what did we rate Extension as last year? And
What did we?
do we know what we rated?
I don't know.
Shan Shan?
Yeah.
It
Can we
was
go back
down.
and find it?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'm sure it was not high. I don't know.
I think it was, actually, I don't know what month it was.
You just give me a little bit of time, I can find
He's
it.
got everything.
He's got everything.
It's-
But,
Hold on.
I mean, is the concern, I mean, is there a design set for the Shan-Shan thing? I mean, it sounds like everything's really up in the air with it still.
They've seen a design for the trailhead, but I don't know.
The access hasn't
The
been-
access.
yeah.
I'm guessing they've seen a design with access off of McCaslin, like a dedicated access off McCaslin.
Yeah.
But again, it would be right in, right out.
Right out, right.
It wouldn't be a four-way direction. You couldn't.
We had it as 11 last year.
What was the, our combined?
What was the
recommendation?
combined? It was still up there, right?
It was still up there. It was combined at 4 last year.
But that was
Same
because
place.
we had taken off all the ones that were completed.
And they didn't.
Right, and they
Or
did.
some, or one of us did, one of us didn't.
Yeah,
So
because
that
we had the expedited ones that we were like, well, those are kind of in the works.
So I guess.
And we didn't push on those.
To the point that was raised is, your concern was that it was so high up, and Peter's concern was access to it, and neither of those have changed. So I would think that, you know, if we're consistent in the message we send, that, you know, I would still agree to this trail plan with the caveat that we have concern about sanction, whether the access and
That's probably, whatever we said last year, probably
right,
fine.
same thing last year.
So I don't have the meeting minutes from last year, but, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly. But I mean, I would just say that we have concerns over design and access of the Shan Shan Trail.
Shan Shan concept.
But we like the idea of a Shan-Shan trailhead.
Right.
Minus the-
I mean, we would still adopt it as being number 4 on the list.
Right.
We would just add that.
There's
Accurate.
complexities and things that need to be worked out.
Right.
Trying to be in harmony with OSAC. And I know these two guys worked it out, so I trust you guys, so it's not a trust issue. No one's out there trying to change the world. It's just, there's something
Well,
that comes up all the time.
and I guess that's the key that I've seen is that there's caveats on every single one of these trails.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like they all tie into something else, and it's
Yeah.
like, you know, other than a few that are pretty much standalone, there's kind of a, if they develop that, they should work on that trail. If they don't, you know, do we want to put it in now, type of thing. So,
Yep.
I mean, I think that, you know, where we are is keeping our eye on these kind of hot major items and kind of going from there.
So then I would make a motion that PROSTAC adopts the combined ranking for the 5-year trails plan with a continued concern over the design and driveway access to a proposed Shan Shan trailhead.
I'd second that.
Okay.
Discussion.
Discussion? All right, all in favor? Passes unanimously. So we might as well talk about the Boulder County recommendation. It's not really, so the last year, so we make the recommendation to Boulder County on both open space acquisitions and trail projects that we would like to see the county fund or partner with the town on. Last year, for open space acquisitions, we listed number 1, level 3, number 2, Bulljack, and number 3, Zaharias. OSAC would like to flip Bulljack and Zaharias, so they would like to see the recommendation this year be number 1, level 3, number 2, Zaharias, and number 3, Bulljack. I still think that level 3 is by far the priority. I don't,
Bulljack is the
in my
farm
opinion,
state.
if level 3
West side
were
of the chasm.
5 different parcels, they would be 1 through 5 on the list. So Zaharias, even if Zaharias moves up to number 2, it's like a distant number 2, in my opinion. I don't know if anyone else has any concerns with the current discussions over Zaharias about changing its priority.
Are they trying to change its priority because of the, now they're trying to put the apartments?
Right.
How did that come up in Monday's meeting? Or the last meeting? Did the Zara Harris project come up?
In the last board
To a
meeting?
vote?
To a vote?
No.
No.
It was a presentation?
It was just a concept design again. They haven't come forward with an actual FDP yet.
Okay.
But OSAC, they sent their recommendation to the board, if I remember correctly, on, what was it, on the Harris area,
That it be purchased as open
yeah.
space.
Buy it, yeah.
They did that
And
recently, right?
The main reason, I mean, you can kind of read into the current discussion as to why OSAC might be wanting to reprioritize. The reason they're really stating it to Corey and I is that they just went through a process of evaluating all the remaining parcels in town and basically relisting their open space acquisition priorities. And through that process, they're saying that Zaharias is of more interest as an acquisition than Boljak.
And I think they also tied that in with the Hutchin Harrison Reservoir and the revitalization that's getting,
Right.
or has gotten, and now that it's full, that kind of, natural preserve over there.
I mean, to be frank, Zaharias really doesn't have any open space value without the reservoir. That's its only real value.
That's true. I'll
It's,
agree with you there.
Should we drain the reservoir, buy it, and fill it back up?
What's that?
Drain,
Train.
unfix the reservoir?
Well,
It's a big catch because, yeah, you're exactly right. If the town hadn't, and the county hadn't combined to put $1.2 million into fixing the reservoir, in the last 3-4 years, whenever that was completed, we probably wouldn't be having this discussion over the priority of Zaharias.
well, and I guess the biggest thing with Zaharias is that I don't know, I'll speak for myself here, not for the committee, but to me, there's 2 different ways to look at it. That yes, it'd be great to have open space and the reservoir and everything there, but also if you could find a developer that had the right density and is giving back the amount of space along the reservoir that I've seen in some of the plans, you're probably getting better by them giving you the open space and park up against the reservoir and more utilization of it than if you buy it as open space, because as open space, it's not the nicest piece of land.
Mhm.
It's right next to 36. It's not like there's, peace and nature. I mean, there's high traffic area right next to it. So there's a little bit of both there where, if you can maintain that and get that natural feel next to the reservoir and get a nice low density, medium density development, there's a balance. And that's where I think that some of the presentations and what's been presented to the board, they continue to look at that. But as open space itself, I don't know if it has full value, because Boljak to me is, you can see as soon as that goes, as soon as that farmstead goes away, Boulder County would want that as open space because there's nothing on the west side of McCausland.
Well,
And if somebody were, if you don't purchase that, what is it?
Right. I mean, it's surrounded by open space, so
Right.
it makes sense that it be purchased as
Just
open
adds
space.
in.
Whereas Zaharias, it's adjacent to the reservoir, but it has no other connectivity to open space. It's, it's got 88th and 36 on the other sides of it. It's not like there's even open space on the other side of 88th or the other side of 36 that you could potentially have some type of access across the roadway to, or under the roadway to. It doesn't exist. It's an insular piece of property.
So,
And the other discussion over Zaharias is just, it's the cost. I mean,
Well-
it's like $6 million by 23 acres. I just read in the last 2 days, Boulder County is looking at buying the Mayhofer farm in Louisville. That's like 170 acres plus some easements, and they're buying it for like $8.5 million. 170 acres for $8.5 million. We're talking about 23 acres for 6. And then Boulder is looking at buying, I think it's like 17 acres for an easement for a trail in North Boulder, and they're paying like $376,000 for 17 acres. That's like almost as much as Zaharias, and they're paying $376,000 for it. I mean, just the cost imbalance in the current asking price for Zaharias, it just absolutely makes no sense as open space. So
in my opinion, I'm going to give it to you because I got the mic and it's turned on. You know, buying Zaharias is not really, like you're saying, it's not really, you're not doing it for open space. You're doing it so nobody else can use it.
Yeah.
That flat out, in my opinion, I think that's why you would buy Zaharias, is so that no one else can use it. And I'm not going to lie, I got concerns with 88. You had, I don't know how many apartment complexes, and 88, especially during school season, that gets pretty bad, and you add all that, that gets even worse. So now you have a road expansion or something you have to do. Plus, you know, we only have one high school, and Monarch is getting already pretty taxed, and so that's my concern. But by the same token, paying $6 million for that piece of
Property?
I'll use that term, property. You know, if you're actually going to use it as open space, you would have to put so much improvement on it that $6 million is going to be way more than that, because right now you have the benefit is the reservoir, and you want the folks to be able to access the reservoir and partake of it. Well, you're going to have to do something there for them to do that, and that's going to add to the cost of the $6 million. So the only reason why you buy it is so that someone else doesn't develop it, which I don't think makes sense.
The only thing I'll say as pertaining to this recommendation to the county is, I think that from the standpoint of the town buying it, makes absolutely no sense. But if we could get the county to buy it, because they already own the reservoir, go for it. So the only reason I would see keeping it on this list or even reprioritizing it to number 2 is from the standpoint of, this is a recommendation to the county. This isn't a recommendation to the town of Superior Board. This is a recommendation to the county open space board.
How does this list get to the county?
The town, the board approves it, and it gets, the county makes a request, and we send it back. The town sends it back.
There's a meeting,
Answer.
that's what I believe. Jim used to go to the meetings, I think. They have an annual meeting where they meet and discuss all this stuff, the outer county area.
Yeah, I mean, there is a POSAC. You know, we're PROSTAC. They have POSAC for the county. They have a committee that discusses
But do we
the same
send,
issues in the county.
so would we send level 3 as part of that to the county, or would we just send the stuff that's county related to the county?
Well, no,
'Cause then it doesn't
level
really matter.
3 continues to be the number 1.
No. I'm saying when we send, you know, so we send it to a Superior Town trustees, and then they send it to Boulder County. Do they pull off the ones that we would want to just keep Superior, and then send them the ones that we think should be purchased by Boulder County? I mean, do they get the list of all 3, or do they just get the list of Zaharias?
Just their stuff, yeah.
Right, that's the way I
No,
wonder, 'cause
no,
they
they would get the list of all 3,
Okay.
because at this point, it's not either, it's not town or county. The reason why level 3 is on the list for county open space is really because it would most likely cost more than the town could afford. It would need the partnership with the county to purchase it.
Okay.
Because again, I mean, as big as that parcel is, 100 and some odd acres, it is, again, fairly insular to the town. Like, it doesn't have access points directly to any other county open space. I mean, it would, from the standpoint of the far western piece, is just on the other side of the Castling from county open space. But, you know, if the county bought it, would they say, oh, we'll put a tunnel? Who knows? I don't know, a trail connection. But it's more from the standpoint of we would need their partnership.
So, I guess from the perspective of the county, you know, sending a message to the county that, hey, you should look at this and buy it, that, or what's the other one? Allstate?
Bulljack.
Bulljack.
Allstate.
It doesn't really,
It's a
I don't know,
college.
we've had the same list since I've been here.
I mean, it's the same, it's the
It's the
same
same,
three.
right?
It's
We're
the
gonna
same
send it to
three,
somebody,
it's just the
one
order.
gets pushed
But
to
does-
the
Shane was
other.
on it at one
but does the
point,
priority change,
but we ended up buying it ourselves.
does the priority change?
No,
when
that was
someone wants
bought
to
in
buy it?
partnership with the county.
Was it? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
My question is, does the priority change now that somebody wants to buy it?
Not for me.
Right, do we, not for, and I agree, not for the town, but for the county, does the priority change with what we want to send to the county because somebody wants to buy it? Do we want to elevate that on our, this is what I'm trying to get at, this is why I was trying to wrap my head around. Do we want to elevate that to the county for the fact that somebody wants to buy it now, when somebody didn't want to buy it, it wasn't that time? I mean, if somebody was wanting to buy Bulljack, would we elevate that?
Right.
You know, would we elevate that over level 3 if somebody's trying to buy both of those and no one's trying to buy level 3 or they're not even willing to sell?
Well, personally, I would never elevate anything over level 3. Level 3 will always be number 1 until the day it's purchased. To me, honestly, I think we're splitting hairs whether Zaharias is 2 or 3. Again, to me, like, level 3 is so much higher that it doesn't really matter what's 2.
How does that get communicated though to Boulder County?
That piece doesn't necessarily get communicated to Boulder
Well, so
County.
that's what gets lost in translation.
Yeah. But
So essentially the rankings really
if,
don't matter.
if Boulder County wants to buy Zaharias, but if they wanted to, I have no problem with that. I have a problem with the town of Superior buying it. If the county wants to buy it, I have no problem with that. So to me, whether Bulljack is 2 and Zaharias is 3, or Zaharias is 2 and Bulljack is 3,
I agree.
So I guess where I struggle with this is how do we send the message then that to the town, here's our ranking, we really want you to really concentrate on trying to work with Boulder County for number 1. Let's send these other 2 to Boulder County and, you know, and make a recommendation for these other 2.
Well,
How do we do that?
in this list, we don't really. I mean, unless we
Remember, this is.
Unless we went to the-
This list is something they're asking from us.
Yeah.
Right. I
We're
know.
not sitting to them, they're saying, what are your priorities?
the county is asking the town
So
of
that's,
Superior.
Yeah.
it's the county asking
What
us.
are your
So it's
Right,
not
but
a-
I'm trying to figure out, you know, we've had really good discussion on this. How do we get that message across?
Are they only looking for the list, like 1, 2, and 3, or list plus a few comments?
We've never, for the open space acquisitions, we've never really made comments. I mean, last year, Zaharias did have in parentheses, currently under proposal for development and may be purchased. There was a comment made.
So we could add, if we wanted to, comments, so they're not prohibited.
We could. It's the only issue there would be whether or not OSAC, if we're gonna have a combined list, agreed with OSAC and PROSTAC, if we add comments, is OSAC gonna agree to our comments? I don't know that they would. And so it's an issue whether we wanna make a compromise and basically just submit a list without comments, or we basically want to submit a list separate from OSAC, and then the board needs to make a decision of which list they want to submit to the county. They're not going to submit 2 divergent lists to the county. They're gonna make a decision of whether they want to take OSAC's list or PROSAC's list, or they could, I guess in theory, they could make a combined list themselves, make a compromise
But-
themselves.
I mean,
But both OSAC and PROSAC agree that level 3 is number
Number
1.
one.
Right.
So-
The
other 2 is
the
just-
change that OSAC is asking for is that Zaharias is 2
Yeah.
and Bulljack is 3.
Right.
Level 3 stays number 1.
And for me, I mean, we talked about it last night a little bit, and I brought up my, just comment about Zaharias, and the utilization of it. But, you know, OSAC is in the process, I mean, that's their task, is to look at the open space, and they're in the process of looking through all of it. And there's like a whole observation worksheet about, you know, how do you rank, you know, open space, and it's like the aesthetic, the management of it, the vegetation, the water, the wildlife, all these different rankings about how you do it. And, you know, with the reservoir, that has added another ranking to that value of that property. And, you know, overall, we're saying that these are our top three, and they're really some of the only ones left in the community. And if we can get it as open space, I mean, that's one of the beauties of our community, is that natural trails and open space and the integration of it all. So, you know, for me, partly why I'm here is to make sure we have that lifestyle. And, you know, if Boulder County supports us, and if I have $5 million and I'm gonna put it toward a property, can I get number 1, 2, or 3? It'd be great and a benefit. You know, if we got Zaharias as a property, I'd hope we'd be able to put some sort of trail through the property. But may not, because it might be just open space. But at least you're maintaining that wildlife. And
What's the acreage of Bulljack?
It's,
I don't know.
I'd have to look.
So
It's
level
probably-
3
It's probably like 5 acres or something.
Okay, so
It's
level
not-
3 is like
yeah.
100-ish?
It's like 140 or something
Okay.
like that.
And Zaharias and Bulljack are about the same then?
Right,
Zaharias.
and they're smaller.
Okay,
Well, Bulljack's definitely smaller than Zaharias.
okay. Because to your point then, I mean, the size of the land makes a difference too, right? Do you fight for the 100 acres versus the 5 acres? Or do you fight for the 10 acres versus the 5 acres?
Well,
So-
and in saying that too, I mean, they just, you know, when we acquired the space adjacent to Bulljack, you know, that was a lot larger parcel, and that was just, what, 5 years ago? Let's see, 4, I don't know, a few years back.
I feel like that was longer than that.
I know,
I'm not sure.
I lose track.
That might be one of the original purchases going back to like, you know, around 2005 or something.
There was a map in here.
So Zaharias is larger than Bulljack then?
Zaharias is 23
Like 4
acres.
times times 5.
I'd have to look up Bulljack, but I want to say it's probably only like 5. It's less than 10, let's say. It's you go up there. It's just it's like a farm, a little like
This is the
farm
farm side up
parcel.
there.
It's
Mhm.
not. It's surrounded by open space. It's not overly large on its own.
Here, I mean, this is in the Prost master plan, but that little yellow, this was purchased and that green was purchased, so
Mhm.
you can see how it's kind of whittled down to that small piece that's left.
This one here?
And that's where the homestead is, and the farmstead
This
is.
is the level.
Hey,
3,
Al,
so all
Do
three.
you know
Yep.
if the rumor's true that Louisville
Mhm.
bought Storage Tech property? Storage Tech property?
And this is what? Yeah.
The Conoco
Yeah,
Phillips
this-
property?
All
You
this-
guys heard anything about that?
all of this. So
Yes,
Okay.
that's.
I mentioned
This is
those
Superior
that
Security on this, but it's very
they
low
have
that line.
worded. But
Just
There
wondering
was
if
something
it's
about that
different.
connectivity in the roadways.
so this is here,
and
this is
stuff.
right here.
I mean, it's not irrelevant to it's irrelevant to our conversation, but it may not be irrelevant to our conversation, because the Harry's is right across the
You can
highway.
see, so here's
If
compared to that.
Louisville gonna do
In
something
this
with that
area.
land,
Mhm.
which we don't know, develop it, maybe,
Yeah,
I don't know.
okay, thank you.
Well, that's
So
the thing,
anyway,
is if Louisville buys
got all
it,
kinds
I
of
would
stuff in
think
this
that
one
actually
binder.
rules out the development.
Yeah, that's a
That
good
what?
map.
That would rule out.
But you can also
development,
see
like housing
just the
development.
amount that.
Yeah.
has
I mean, they would
been
probably
That's what
use
the
it for
plan is.
civic amenities,
Yeah, that's right.
not, and not any
Developed.
type of commercial
I mean,
or
'cause
residential development.
yeah, I agree with you, that's one of the
So,
reasons why I like Superior is that we have
that-
open space.
If
So I'm all for
Louisville
protecting it as well,
purchases
where it makes sense.
ConocoPhillips, I think it
I
almost
mean, we have 3
devalues
properties left, that
their
one, that one,
Zaharias
and
property.
there's,
Hmm.
I would almost
Couple
rank,
little ones?
me
Not
personally, I would
relevant.
almost
It's
rank by
relevant. It's
size,
not relevant.
just
It might
because
be.
that's how.
They agreed to put fields there, because you can't build anything else there because of the contamination from the previous owners.
I would include
Yeah,
ranking
also.
it by.
Well, and they
risk
might
of
use it
losing
for the road access from, a secondary
Yeah,
road access for
Somebody
Monarch.
wants to buy something.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Somebody's in the process of trying to buy it. and you
All right, so
it's also why the price goes up.
so are we willing to agree to the change on open space acquisitions, level 3 Zaharias, Bulljack?
I do, just simply because Zaharias is bigger.
Okay. So then, moving on the trail projects, the one change that OSAC wanted to make was, so trail number 1, we had as trail connection from 36 underpass at Davidson Mesa with a safe crossing at Marshall Road. If you want me, I can read this whole language. But we would basically adopt the same language as last year for these trails. So one would be Davidson Mesa access. Two would be Meadowlark Trail connection to the Shan Shan property. Three would be a resurfacing of the Colton Trail. Four would be a link between Mayhaw for a single treat and the Coal Creek Regional Trail, which Rogers Farm comes into play there again. And so it remains of interest to us, but I would say that has the same kind of questions as the Shan Shan Trailhead has. Does it make sense to do anything with that before Rogers Farm is picked out? And then number 5 was the Colton Trail south to 128 and then west to 66. So if anyone remembers the map, that's that at the southwest corner, it's that big long trail that goes into the open space down to 128. The only trail that OSAC wanted to remove was number 6, which was an access point to Meadowlark at High Plains Drive. So if you're familiar with it, that's where they have that road access gate for the county to drive pickups like cattle and stuff to drive onto the property. We've always wanted an access point there, like a gate with a little trail into Meadowlark. The county has over and over again come up with excuses as to why they will not do that. So until they redo their management plan, OSAC wants to basically just withdraw that trail. So we would keep trails 1 through 5 exactly as they were written last year, with the removal of trail number 6, that access point just south of High Plains Drive. Does anyone see any issues with that?
Just a general observation, but and it seems like that we coordinate with them, they tell us what they want, and then we accept what they want. Why does it never go the other way around? I mean, personally, I think this should be a kind of both ways, where they coordinate with us on the open space, and we coordinate with them on the trails and see if we can get them to accommodate on the trails, because we're more trails, they're really more open space, and they coordinate with us and see if we can accommodate. There should be kind of a both ways, but right now all I'm hearing is, we want to do this. We would like for you guys to do what we do. Oh, we want to do this in trails. We want you guys to do what we do. It just seems like we're always giving, and frankly, I mean, I'm willing to, and some of this stuff really doesn't matter. We're splitting hairs, like you said earlier, but it just feels like whatever they ask us, we're like, sure, whatever.
No, I understand your point. It's not that we haven't asked for things in the past. And I mean, I will say,
because even last year,
the 5-year trails plan, I actually asked them to make a couple changes myself, and they did make them. Okay. It was simple things like where things had a combined ranking that was like 36, 36, 36. I asked them to move them around because they were actually in favor of PROSTAC to move them. So it's not like we don't ask anything of them, but offhand, I can't recall how we came to this ranking last year, if that was really based more on PROSTAC or OSAC. I mean, definitely the 36 underpass at Davidson Mesa. I mean, that's one that PROSTAC has certainly spearheaded, and that's at the top of the list.
Last year, it was favored in their rankings because they didn't include trails, like you were saying, that were already completed, and we did, which skewed the rankings.
Well, right. They did not take my advice on the rankings last year, and so anything that was on the expedited trails list, they ranked low. Whereas we said, let's not take into consideration funding or possible construction, just rank them based on priority. They take out all outside factors. And they didn't do that. They did it this year, or so they told me they did. But last year they didn't, and that's how it really skewed things, because they ranked a bunch of those trails like low, because they just thought, oh, well, they're gonna get built. They ranked them low, and it skewed
And
it.
they didn't
Well,
get
we've
built.
always been under the, as long as I've been under the impression that if it's not built,
Yeah.
Keep putting
it's
it
not
high.
done yet.
Exactly.
'Cause you never
Our
know.
rankings have also been skewed down a little because one of our members never votes. That person will remain unnamed. They're not sitting here tonight, but they never vote. So so like if OSAC has 9 people voting and we only have 8, that automatically favors OSAC in the combined rankings.
That's true. Just vote twice. What early vote off?
Yeah, just submit a vote on part of the missing member.
Guarantee there's 9.
So, you're right, I mean, the rankings are not always exactly fair. But that's why we have to have the discussion of, do we want to question them? Do we want to make requests of changes? So, I mean, in this case, we could say, no, we don't want to remove number 6. You know, we still want to push for it even if the county is resistant. Because the county, to be perfectly honest, the county is resistant on the Coal Creek Trail south to 128. They basically said the same thing. Until we rewrite the area management plan, we're not going to consider that trail. But that trail is staying on the list, so we could say, well, why is number 6, why is the access point at High Plains Drive coming off the list? Just because the county says, no, we're taking off the list, well, then we should take off number 5 too.
Right.
But I don't want to take off number 5. I want to, if we really want it, I want to continue hammering the point to the county that we want it. Even if they're saying no, I want it to be on the list.
Right, so
they know we want it.
My question is, so they said no because they need to rewrite the management plan. My question is, when do they plan on doing that then?
I want to say it's in the next like 2 or 3 years
Okay.
that they're supposed to redo it. I don't know exactly, but I want to say it's somewhere around 2020.
But they're not supposed to do Rocky Flats too.
Well, that's the other issue is that this whole Rocky Flats Greenway Trail, they're currently looking at rerouting that to not even go through Rocky Flats. So then there would be some question, well, part of this trail might even be built as part of the Greenway, and then we would only be asking for the segment that would link into it. Like if they're building, if they're basically already building the whole stretch that would go south along on the southern side of 128 to 66, all we would need is the link that gets us to there. They would be already building like half the trail as the Greenway. But what I'm told is that Greenway trail is changing like every day. Like they haven't settled on a design yet. They've had points where it actually comes down east of McCaslin, like into, I guess, whatever easement is next to level 3. Like they would come down there, but then the question is, well, how does it get across McCaslin? Well, then they would probably need to, would they build something that links into Colton, like we're basically asking, Colton Trail?
Sorry. Shiny.
So as far as trails, that the only question is, do we add or do we leave or remove the access point at High Plains Drive, south of High Plains Drive?
I have one quick question. Is that the trail that is towards Shan Shan from Key Bank, or was it the one on the other side of Key Bank towards Colton?
The one I just mentioned? So this is, the High Plains Drive is the street where that goes into the ridge.
Isn't it?
And no, it's not that. That's pretty much gone away, number 9.
Is it number 4?
This is just where the gate is It's a connection from the gate into the Meadowlark Trail.
Isn't it this one?
Okay, and
It's
so.
not on the map.
No,
I was at one of
Or
the
is it this?
meetings with
It's right
Boulder
there.
County, and it wasn't just about updating that management plan. They considered that route into that gate, and because of the steepness of the grade
Well,
of that
right.
area, there was a
They've
problem.
expressed issues over like ADA accessibility, which makes absolutely no sense. This is why I say I worded it as they continue to come up with excuses. Because how can you argue that the entire Meadowlark single tree trail is ADA accessible? You can't.
I get off my bike.
So
and
why
carry
does
on.
that access point have to be ADA accessible? It makes no sense to me. But again, that's why I would say if we want to continue to push it, we could say, well, it'll switch back. You know, if they're concerned about the grade, it doesn't have to be like a straight segment.
So it is this one, right? That little thing right there.
Yeah, that's all
The
it
gate
is.
and up.
Yeah.
Which is like, there is a trail.
The one people
there.
actually, it's a social trail right now.
People already do it. They hop the gate. This would just have an official access point. It would have a gate that you could, if you had a bike, you could actually get your bike through and not have to throw your bike over a cattle gate.
Yeah, it's right there at the top where not quite a switchback, but the hill goes up and cuts sharply to the left.
Yeah.
I mean, leaving it on the list might give them incentive to work out the management plan and all these other, questions sooner. Or it might be futile, I don't know. I mean, I kind of think if we go back to the principle of priority versus external factors, if we think it's a priority, we think it's a good idea, I would say let's leave it on there. Because this is just an external factor.
They'll just come back and tell us no. Is the,
Well,
what else
right.
can they do?
Basically.
I mean, that's essentially what will happen. But there's at least one, if not multiple trails on here that they would potentially
Right.
come back and say no on too.
Right.
And we're leaving them on. So
Right, well,
that
what I would.
external factor that Jacques is saying, I mean, if we just remove the previous no's from the equation.
Well, my point is, so for me, I would like clarity on, is it a firm no, or is it a no because we're not doing the management plan for a few years, and then it's a yes, right? So it's more of a maybe, it's not a no. So to me, a firm no is, there's absolutely no way we can do this because of A, B, and C, and that's never gonna change. Versus, this is just
Just
too,
not now.
right, just not now.
When there's
So-
no, we know.
Right, so there's, I think, the difference between no versus delayed, or, not now. That's all I'm saying. So,
Right.
to me, obviously, if they say there's absolutely no way this will never happen, that's for sure a no, take it off the list. If it's we're just not looking at this now, I kind of think it makes sense to leave it on the list, but that's just my opinion.
I'm fine with leaving it on the
So
list.
how does it affect our unified recommendation with OSAC?
OSAC would have to make a decision whether they want to agree with us or they really want to diverge on this. I mean, we'll have to see what they say they would hopefully discuss it at their next meeting. I mean, I'll inform them of what we decide tonight. And if we're saying we want to leave it on, then it's more in their, rather than us considering removing it, they're going to have to consider keeping it.
Right, I'm in favor of that. It's kind of funny because part of their, in my mind at least, their focus on trails is trails to open space. And this is a trail to open space. It's not a trail inside Superior city limits like, certain Coyote Ridge stuff is, but it's a trail that gives you access to open space, which I think that they would be in favor of.
I mean, the worst that can happen is, it stays on the list and the county tells us that they don't want it. And they give us an official answer. So to me, I'm like, we may as well just say, we're in favor of leaving it on just so that we
We
think
get a
it's still a
response.
connection, there's a
Yeah.
community trail there, and if the county says no, that's fine, but we still think that it's used and there's a community trail to prove it.
It's like
Yeah.
the guy
If
who
they don't
writes
want
a-
to make it official, that's fine, but it's still there.
It's like the guy who writes a letter a week to the senator until he gets a response.
It's also number 6 on the list of 6. So it's
Right.
the lowest
It's-
priority
Yeah.
that we
Right.
have on the list. So,
So
Right.
why would we still need it. At the end of the day, we still somebody let out, the bike riders, we
If
still
they're-
like to have that.
We
Right?
still,
People
yeah,
are-
we still see a need for it, or a
Right.
reason to have it.
Okay, well, someone want them to leave it on.
All right. So then I would make a motion that PROSTAC keeps the same recommendation for Boulder County open space and acquisitions and trail projects, with the one change that on open space acquisitions, it is priority 1, level 3, priority 2, Zaharias, priority 3, Bojack.
Yeah.
Concur.
All right, so second, Jack, second, discussion, all in favor? And so Allison, the language for all this is in the meeting notes from last year. I think it's August, but if you want me, I can, if you want me to, I can find it, so we can just copy it. Okay, I think it's August, August or September of last year, I'm pretty sure. All right, so that's it for discussion items, updates. I don't know, Allison, if you really have anything to comment on the disc golf championship and when we had it here, 2 weeks ago? It was in Purple Park again.
It was a great success. Everybody loved it. The players loved it. It was really busy in the park. And I think that they're going to want to host it again in the next
Well, and last
couple of
year,
years.
Was it last year or was it 2 years ago? That
2 years, wasn't it?
2 years ago when we had it, it kind of sparked a little bit of discussion of, why is our disc golf course somewhere that no one uses it? Why don't they move it over to Purple Park where they played this tournament? I haven't heard that again this year, but at some point, I think it is actually on our work plan for this quarter, is to discuss the current location of the disc golf course and the fact that the landscaping of it makes it pretty much unusable. Most people don't go out there, so.
So my observations of that, because I can see that from my office window, watching them, that area, like you said, got really busy, and then I run a lot of that area too. And even it was like 7 or 8 at night, I'm still running that area, and it was just packed still with folks. I mean, it was really busy. So I like that it's, every 2 years. I like that it's a temporary thing.
Yeah.
But a permanent, something permanent out there, which was brought up like 2 years ago, I think.
But when you're saying it was packed for people viewing the tournament, or people?
No, people playing.
Like the public was just playing?
The people playing, I mean, they had their little strollers and everything. It really made it difficult to run out there because there would be groups of 8 people standing all on the sidewalk, just standing there. And now you're having to try to maneuver through all these big groups of 8 people. And then you have to watch because somebody's teeing off as you're going through on a sidewalk, and your head's on a swivel, making sure that you don't get hit in the head with a. These frisbees are hard too.
Yeah.
So it's okay to deal with for a week or so. I like that it exposes them to Purple Park, but.
I don't know that it would be a serious consideration.
Well, but 2 years ago, I remember it was brought up 2 years ago
It
that
was
somebody was
brought
talking
up.
about maybe
Yeah.
making that permanent, and man,
Exactly.
it would really, hinder the public's use of that park if it was more 100%, frisbee golf.
Right.
Well, I can tell you that the trustees did discuss it, and they talked to Matt about possibly looking at the cost of putting in some permanent, after this latest one, putting some permanent disc golf holes in Purple Park. I don't know where it is, but Matt said he'd look at some price, asked Patrick to look at some prices on putting some permanent ones in there.
Okay. Well, like I said, I think it is on our work plan to discuss at some point in the next couple months, so maybe we'll find out more about that, and we can have that discussion in the next 1 to 2 months.
That might be a Chili Fest topic.
Well, we can, so Chili Fest
Segue.
is September 9th.
Is that Labor Day? Or is it?
It's
is
the
it different?
weekend after Labor
Weekend
Day.
after, okay.
And I would say at this point, it's too early to say what we'll discuss, because
Well, we only have one more meeting.
You only have
so.
one more.
Well, I know, but I think we have to have the meeting with the board on the 14th to know whether or
Rec
not
center.
we will be discussing the rec center.
Mhm.
And because at this point, there's at least 2, if not 3 things we could discuss. It could be the rec center. It could be we have a design for the skate park and it looks like it might move forward, so we want to continue to engage the public on that. Or it could be something else like this disc golf question.
Or embankment slide.
Or what?
Embankment.
slide.
Embankment slide. I mean that's more just an issue of whether it's going to go forward or not. We're not really looking for feedback on that at this point.
No, but if if it looks like it's gonna go forward, it'd be nice to,
We could show it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So yeah, there's a number of things. Hopefully we'll have a good idea by next month what it is, so we can talk about it next month. But what it is we'll be talking about at Chili Fest. But
may I actually add something real quick? This is something I just remembered, Allison. I brought up something to Patrick, and he thought it was a good idea. What was the videos that the city made recently about cleaning up dog poop or something like
yeah,
that?
and they were
The videos-
supposed to make one on pool safety.
and pool safety. And I said, it'd be really nice to put that at the beginning of the HOA movie night.
And I mentioned it to the HOA president, but I don't think he ever went anywhere with
So
it.
those are still ongoing. I think we maybe have like 1 or 2 left. So now that they are ongoing, maybe we should think about that because you get a big audience.
The second one I think was last Friday. There's one left.
There's one left
in-
next month.
in August.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did mention that before the first one, and I don't think he ever did anything.
Okay. Sorry.
So, well, you're up next, Corbett, on the bike rides.
By the way, I sent an email out last week, and I didn't see any response from Kevin.
I'm
or anything.
not-
Did you see the email? 'Cause I
I'm
put
not
you on it.
available that date.
What? But did it go out? Because I didn't get a response.
No,
from
it did go out.
Okay. So
What was it, 28?
The next event is the July 29th and 30th. It's the Coyote Ridge Trail Maintenance, and followed by the next day of kind of leading a ride through that area, just kind of getting people to experience the area, something very simple. Unfortunately, so I worked out with Kevin and I don't remember the lady's name. That's about the best weekend to put it, and I'm out of town that weekend, so I need someone to help support either day. I can probably get Sunny from VeloStop to kind of lead the bike tour, right? I'm not as concerned about that, but I need a support from somebody to help lead the trail maintenance on the 29th.
Yeah, I'm out of town too. So otherwise I would do it.
I don't get back in
Amazing.
town until like 10 p.m. on the 30th.
Is anyone available on Saturday? It's Saturday, right?
It's Saturday the 29th. And I have another neighbor I might be able to get if no one on the board,
Yeah,
or I mean on the committee.
I'm available, just need some guidance on what to do.
Yeah, and so your role would largely, that would be communicated through the town. These are the things that we need to do. Mostly it's just
29th that you mean?
cleaning
Yeah,
up, smoothing out the trail, and so your role would be
Would be
breaking
the
up the
maintenance.
folks into different groups and say, here's some
30th would be the bike
tools,
ride.
we're gonna meet here, here's some tools, you want you guys concentrate in that area, this area, and Matt would give you an email of all the stuff that we kind of need to done in that area.
Matt Lee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe it's Matt Ritter.
Matt, right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, so,
Yeah. One of
I
them.
mean, if
Thank you.
there is a question as to what
I might be able to support
needs
that.
to be worked on the trail, I could probably look at that one day before I leave town. But that's what I did that last year with Patrick and Matt, was like walk the trail and said what we want to work on.
Yeah, and that's what Matt
The
did.
main thing was that we worked on like the northern portion. That southern like loop largely got untouched. Some of the stuff we did on the north, like trying to reseed, it didn't really take. And those posts are still out there where we tried to close it off. And because the grass didn't take, people were just walking around the posts, they're just still trampling those trails. So I don't know if part of the effort should be to make another attempt to reestablish those couple locations, again, the poster's still out there, it's pretty obvious which areas we tried to close off. And then
Tried to.
work on that southern portion, just work on, you know, any of the drainage issues, or, you know, kicking out any of like the really large rocks, that type of thing.
Yeah, so I think what would be helpful, like what Matt gave me, was for the BMX track. Here's a list of stuff that, you know, in priority to work on. And that way, if you got different people show up, you can break them up, okay, you do this, this, and this. Just kind of guide them. And it'd only be like, you know, an hour and a half to it.
Yeah, I can
Is
certainly
that,
do that.
is that the 29th of morning?
No, it's 6 p.m.
6 p.m.? Okay.
The one thing I will say is,
I may be able
we
to
need
do
to
it.
make sure that a notice goes out on
6
this.
p.m. on
Well,
Saturday.
and
As soon as
that's why I sent
possible.
that email out last week saying to try to get it out early, and I still haven't seen anything, so I need to, that's why I was worried that it didn't go out, but you said you got it.
I did. I thought I replied, but I didn't.
6 p.m. on Saturday, 6 to 8.
Yeah.
And Sonny's definitely committed to being there
Yep,
for the 30th.
yep, and he'll be there for the 29th too.
Oh, okay. So Allison, can you make
And this
sure?
is why we do it at 6 p.m. because they close at 5.
Okay. Allison, can you make sure that e-blast gets sent out within the next 2 days?
Hmm? 9.
So the last item is the PROS master plan update. This is really on here as a reminder to myself. So Corey started working on marking up a copy of it. Oh, you have it pulled up.
I'm ready to go. You said I have to present.
He's ready.
You guys heard I talked for 5 minutes.
God.
Are you seriously ready to present?
Well, not fully, but I was gonna just touch base on it. And
Okay.
more than anything, I think the big deal is I have a PDF and the Word copy, and it's just a matter of getting it out to everyone and how we want to try and mark it up or utilize it, because that's one of the hard things.
I have to go
about-
back and look at the notes on the project teams. Was there someone else here that wanted to? I know Corey and I were going to work on it. Was there someone else?
There was some.
That was
I
gonna
have to go look.
I feel like
work
I
on it?
volunteered
I
for
think you
something,
did.
but I don't remember. This has now been a long time
Okay.
ago.
Yeah. It was-
Yeah,
We got
I think it was
distracted with
me.
all the
Sure.
rec
Yeah,
center
thanks for
stuff.
noticing.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah,
kinda-
and then rec center
This one
happened.
got kind of
Right.
Back burner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was just gonna flip through it real quick. I mean, it's
All
a few
120
hundred pages, but if
Yeah.
you get the gist of it, is what, you know, really it's all about. But, you know, just to, see page 2? Yeah, there we go. I just wanna get you to the table of contents.
I like the fact that it's draft 3.05.
Yeah.
How many significant figures do we really need in the draft?
No,
framework?
that's date.
Yeah.
Date,
Yes.
March of '05, by the way.
Wow.
So anyway, when you look at it, really the executive summary, there's a lot of just good understanding of how some of this was developed and why even PROSTAC was developed, and how the, you know, committees and people all work together. But really, recommendations for park development has a lot of Town 9 information in it, and there's a lot of other parks that have been developed, and it's really removing a lot of information and just cleaning it up
Mhm.
down to what we have, like we've talked about with trails. And then, you know, you go through Park and Rec's facilities, like they went into Town 9 in depth, and they basically built everything in the recommendations, except for Town 9 didn't get the skate park, tennis courts, and indoor facility, which are our top 3 priorities that are still
Mhm.
left, that we just touched base on with rec facility, skate park, and tennis courts is one of the other pieces that we've talked about. They talk about some of the library scenarios, and a lot of this is just update information. Natural open space, to just talk about, you know, different types of open space there. So not to flip through everything, planning context went through, and there was a lot of, on page 25 through 29 was all updates on open space available, which to me, there's a lot of that's already been covered.
Well,
in
and
the planning
that's
efforts.
what OSAC basically just
Right.
went through and did themselves. So most likely what we'll do is just in updating the PROS master plan, we'll just review what OSAC just did.
Right.
And if if we don't really see anything that we disagree with, we'll just drop in their report into the updated postmaster plan.
Right, I wish there was tabs on this. So used to Bluebeam.
So what have you done? Are you redlining it, or?
I just went through and marked up the copy I have here.
So you've marked it by hand?
Just
You
by
haven't-
hand, because I just,
He does it on a plane.
I did it, yeah, I don't carry this on the plane, but I just happened to be sitting at home in the evening on the back patio and would mark it up.
Well, I was just gonna say, if you had
I
like,
could PDF
redlined,
it and mark it.
then we could just pass that around one by one. So
Right.
like, you redline it,
Well, and that's
then I
where,
redline it,
I mean,
and Kelly redlines
Yeah.
it, like that, if that's
we can
the-
do that. Or, yeah, I can just pass a PDF around. And that's part of what I was trying to figure out, is how to get it to everyone. Because once you start getting in here, it's a lot of, some of it's just basic understanding of everything, planning context about what they were trying to achieve. And I think some of them are still valid and very credible to keep. And then really the analysis and recommendation is where you're trying to just understand estimated project costs. And I didn't really get into a lot of that yet, but it's like 30 pages of really in-depth on different areas and different costs about what they wanted to do. So
And that stuff's gotta be so out of date.
that's out of date, and but it's interesting
out
to
of date.
see some of the pieces that were requested back then that are still on our list.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
hate to say that, that's 12 years and, yeah. Market analysis, I think there's a community profile and demographics where, there's just an update of what the demographics in the area is. Do we have 6,000 people, or is it 10,000 people? It's really that type of thing.
Yeah, we'll just have to pull up the last.
In
Whatever.
inventory gets into lists. There was lists of all kinds of different programs within the area, different community activities around, like YMCA programs, etc. So it's a lot of update of what that information is, and some of it's valid and some of it, has changed. Alternate program providers, and then park inventory. Park inventory got into a lot of the details, but we've done a park analysis a few years ago from like 2012, was it?
No, it was more recent than that. It was
I want to say it was
the
right
playground
before.
analysis.
Yeah.
No, that was probably like 2014.
Oh, yeah. 2013. Sorry, I got to keep reading. Add park names, update with park analysis doc from 2013 is what I wrote here. So, I mean, so there's a park inventory, but we've done one since then, but it's just never been recompiled back into this document, I think is what it really comes down to. So there's a bunch of different ways to add that. And then there was community outreach and different ways to do community outreach and stakeholder meetings and staff input. So I didn't really go into too much of that more than, and then I think there was a community outreach analysis in here, like an entire survey that took up a big chunk. And that just shows what people were looking for back then, which we have updated information since then. And I think that goes back to the 2000, I want to say 12, 13, somewhere in that range again, survey where we have all that information.
You're talking about the indoor space survey?
There's an indoor space survey, but then, even the rec center, like all that information, because when you look in.
There was also the
It's like
the recreation
households, recreation programs, and,
survey.
right,
That
so
was
it's
before.
swapping some of this information out for more recent stuff.
When did you do that, Sandy? The program, was that like 2013? It was before the indoor space survey, I think.
Right? I mean, more than anything, it's just, you start getting into the just understanding of, a lot of this is history, and we've done a lot of updates to this, but it's never been recompiled back into one document. And that's where, even the OSAC looking at the open space analysis, and that could fall back into that recommendation for natural open space back in here. There's that analysis, the trails, so it's just an update of a lot of these items. And then at the very bottom, there was a bunch of appendixes of funding sources. That's really no change. It was like a laundry list of how to get money. It's pretty interesting to read it. And, there was open space attribution score worksheet, which is what I talked about earlier, where there was, the aesthetic and the water quality and, things like that. So those don't really change. And then let's see, what was the rec one? I don't remember the recreation one. It was some analysis of a bunch of different variation. Oh, that was the activity list of bowling, camping, climbing, community rec programming, dancing, fitness center, and it had all the different providers in the area that you could go to with addresses and phone numbers and everything. It's quite the in-depth list that I'm like, eh.
For a new,
So some of this could probably just be removed
Yeah.
Yeah.
because there's more
Do
updates.
you think
we
you
don't.
could actually get that in PDF format
Yeah,
over the
I have it.
weekend?
I have it. I have it
'Cause
in
if
Word
I-
and PDF. It's just a
Because
matter of
if
what
I can
you,
get
how to put it.
Patrick to like print it for me like on Monday, I could actually work on that on the plane on Tuesday.
Well, and that's why I've been using this. Patrick gave me this book like a year or two ago, and it's just been very interesting and, a quiet read in the backyard here and there. And honestly, these maps at the very back, the appendix, sorry, if I had learned how to like tab through all this.
The maps will clearly need to be updated.
The maps is what I continue to fall back onto when we talk about all this stuff, because like, how do I get to the very bottom? Like, here's survey stuff, that was in there from way back in the day. But if I get to the last couple maps, sorry. I know it's the end of the meeting and everyone's like, Corey, scroll faster. Are they in here?
It's been longer than 5 minutes.
Oh, there it is. Look at that.
It's in the folder.
Oh, it's okay.
Aw.
They broke it out for,
Yeah.
I mean-
so you don't have to scroll to page 122.
Well, in the short of that, it just shows like there's different grasps and there's different terms of what each map means, but it gets into like the distance of things from the main center and how close parks are to different communities and the builds. Oh geez, now I'm gonna just flip through them. Here, let's go
Well,
this way.
they're individual.
But you get into like the orange tells you different. This one was where is it? The grasp analysis, which there's a term and I can't remember what all that means. But you start getting into the proximity, and you can see all the green space here. There was a grasp analysis, and this one's the neighborhood perspective, and it's the travel distance and walking distance to different areas. And you can see all the trails that are in red in there. This one was purple. Purple got into open space perspective and proximity to houses. And then you get into this was the trail map from way back in the day. And as you know, we've looked at many of them since.
It's interesting to show like the Bell Flatirons trails on the town trail.
Yeah. Trail network.
They really shouldn't be there.
So, and this one even showed proposals for, trails within the new town center now. So, and here's some of those other properties. So, and then the last one here showed open space and what was this, or sorry, not open space, but undeveloped, I think was what it was called. Undeveloped parcels. And, just, this is what we pointed out earlier tonight, was these are 2 parcels that were purchased. The Bull Jack is still available. Level 3 is up here available. The Zaharias, these are purchased now in town center. The Oxner property after myself here that, has been developed, and even up here. So just tells all the different pieces. So, I mean, it's just interesting when you look through this document, if we can keep this document, bring it back up to speed a little bit and have that as a reference point, it helps when we have all these discussions about, proximity of things and what's left. So without going through everything, that was my 5-minute update. I hope it was educational for you all. But I think there's a lot of information that is, it's historical data, but on the other hand, there's still pieces in there that are relevant and tell the philosophy of why and how the open space was acquired, and the trails and the trail network and things like that. So it's good to read, and I don't think it should be taken out of here, but I think that some of the just supporting information, there was a lot of heavy information about Town 9 and what was looking for to provide that new, Founders Park It's called TownNet in here, so I flip
Huh.
back and forth. But it gave a lot of information about what they were looking for and why, and how that tied to some of these maps about community space and walking distances and things like that, so it was just good.
Cool.
Cool.
So I could probably just send out the PDF to everyone, just so that you guys have it. And from there, it's just a matter of how we want to, and I think that's what I hit the stumbling block, because we talked about putting it in Google Docs or something like that, and
Right.
you can't get it into Google Docs, and if it is, it's hard to acquire amongst multiple people with all the graphs and charts and tables and stuff in there. It's a fairly large document.
Right.
And I offered up like Bluebeam, and not everyone has Bluebeam, I'm sure, but you know, that opens a session and it's cloud-based and you can mark it up, everyone live. I use it all the time.
Got a
But-
Slack account, right?
Yeah? Yeah, you can share
Yeah, I
the
haven't
Slack.
quite figured out how to get it up on that, if we try to do that, so. But more than anything, it's just, we either do a PDF and everyone passes it around and, you know, provide your comments and we put it all back as one, or there's gotta be, you know, some other way just to compile it in some cloud-based site. So I just haven't figured that out. I'm a little slow.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we basically have till the end of the year to work
Yeah.
on it. I mean, and at that point, we'll probably have to turn it over to
Right.
staff, because some of it, they might have to end up hiring
Well-
someone, but we wanted to try to at least eliminate some of that work, so it
Right.
wasn't gonna cost like
And more than,
$50,000 or whatever the estimate was to have someone work on it. If we can do the bulk of the work and just
Wow.
get them to do the technical aspects.
and this was even, you know, like a survey, and so it's just a matter of what we want to put in there and what we think is relevant and what we don't really need anymore. So,
And update the maps, like your trail maps and things like that.
yeah, and some of those are already updated, it's just a matter of putting in the
In
most
one
recent,
doc.
as we
Yeah.
noticed tonight, you know, finding the most recent one and which one is the latest.
Right.
Cool.
So, but yeah, you know, here's the inventory of parks and analysis. And at the time, there was a big deal about they didn't all have names, which is a big deal for me, looking at the maps and going, what is that park?
Well, right. A lot of the ones that just said known as, they still don't officially have names. They're just known as.
known as Purple Park.
Though actually, some of those aren't even correct, because like, I've never heard of Sagamore Main Playground. There's big and small.
Well, and that's where I had to look at some of the other maps to try and figure out where some of them were. So once you get into it, you kind of, the appendix and the maps are very important to tie everything back together.
What is North Recreation Center? Park
Going to the
sales.
north.
Yeah.
Oh, pool. Okay. They're being a little liberal with the
Oh, yeah,
the
because then it's.
recreation center language.
They just wanted to get it any way they could, Peter. That's why they just named it.
South, yeah. You get into a lot of these and you're like, South Rec Center.
South
Park
Walgreens.
12 South
That's all
Walgreens.
cool.
South
So-
Walgreens.
But you can
That's-
see,
it's a great
you know, there's
title.
some, you know, south of the.
I mean,
road.
that's still,
That's Castle, I think.
I'm pretty sure that like that south of Walgreens, that's just a grass area. I don't think there's even a
Just
bench,
says
a
open
table out
turf.
there.
Yeah.
I've never seen that referenced as a parcel.
So anyway, no matter what, you get the
It's
gist
a good
and, you
historical
know,
document.
athletic, you know, different. And then there was also a lot of keys of tying into the why and why providing recreational opportunities. So it's recreational programming also fed into amenity requirements, and the fact that if you have a lot more recreation programming for baseball, you need more baseball fields. If you have more for open turf fields, you provide more open turf fields. And that's what we've been seeing in a lot of our discussions, that the turf fields are being utilized and there's a heavy need and an over capacity. So anyway, I don't want to go through it all, but you guys could flip through it. I think it was very enlightening to me going through it all. So, and this gets into demographics here. Sorry, I'm backing my way into it instead of going forward.
Well, yeah, that just needs the most recent census data.
Yeah, and then this is where you start getting into this one. You have to take a lot of time, but this one was all recommendations and analysis and cost and priority. And this is like almost our amenity priority list with funding and kind of priority within it, so. Yeah, anyway, I'm good. See, this is a good list too, the open space list, that half of them are gone. Over.
Hey, there's the areas.
Oh yeah, there's like 76 Bull Jack
Rogers Farm.
left.
Right, it's
Um,
alphabetical. Indeed.
Level 3, Ridge
So.
2.
All right, I don't have any more.
All right.
All right, meeting adjourned.
Sorry, was that 15 minutes?
That's in,
Maybe we, yeah.
I'm sure they'll be able to support.
Thank you for bringing these up for me. So I could scroll through it all.
Yeah, sure, happy to do it.
It's all broken up, I mean, if you like it, sort of broken up, to try
So
to
I-
fit it to not.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Well, and that's where,
Keeping my
Because I
options,
had
so.
papers when I was in grad school, huge.
All right, cool.
Patrick
So-
tried to get it up there, like when he first gave it to me and was having issues, and then he finally just sent me the PDF and everything, and then it was right in the middle of, we got into the right center.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
See you, Peter.
Good job. Good luck on that.
Have a good night.
You're just not gonna let Patrick come back to our committee because you like it so much.
Maybe,
Join us.
maybe that's true.